I grew up in a small village nestled at the edge of a dense forest in Central Africa. The forest was thick with ancient trees, their roots twisting like the veins of the earth. It was a place of mystery and fear, where the elders whispered of spirits and ancient curses that had lingered for generations. As a child, I was always warned to never wander into the forest after dark, for that was when the spirits awoke. But like most children, my curiosity often danced on the edge of danger. I would sit by the fire at night, listening intently to the tales my grandmother told. She spoke of a drum that echoed through the forest at midnight, a sound so haunting it would freeze the blood in your veins.
The midnight drum, she called it, played by the hands of the dead.
She told me the story of the drum, how it was once owned by a powerful warrior named Kamau. Kamau was said to have made a pact with the spirits of the forest, offering them his soul in exchange for unmatched strength in battle. The spirits granted his wish, but they warned him. He must never use the drum to summon them for his own gain, only to protect the village.
But power is a dangerous thing. Over time, Kamau grew arrogant, believing himself invincible. One fateful night, he beat the drum, not to defend the village, but to gain wealth and power beyond measure. The spirits, enraged by his greed, cursed him. His soul was trapped within the drum, and anyone who heard its sound would be lured into the forest, never to return. The story terrified me as a child, but as I grew older, I began to dismiss it as just another tale to keep us children in line. That was until the night I heard the drum myself. I was 22 when it happened. I had just returned to the village after studying in the city, eager to reconnect with my roots. My grandmother had passed away the year before, and I had inherited her small hut on the edge of the village, close to the forest. I spent my days helping with the harvest and my nights by the fire, reading her old books and reminiscing about the stories she used to tell.
It was on one such night, as I sat by the fire, that I first heard it. The steady, rhythmic beat of a drum, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. My heart began to race as the sound cut through the night, each beat sending a shiver down my spine. It was coming from the forest.
The midnight drum. I froze, the memory of my grandmother's warnings flooding back. The sound was hypnotic, almost calling me, urging me to follow. I tried to resist, but the pull was too strong. Before I knew it, I was on my feet, moving towards the forest, the drumbeat guiding my every step. The air grew colder as I entered the forest, the trees looming overhead like silent sentinels. The moonlight barely penetrated the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows that danced with the rhythm of the drum. My breath came in short gasps as I pushed deeper into the woods, the drumbeat growing louder, more insistent.
And then I saw it, an ancient clearing deep within the forest, illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. At the center of the clearing stood a massive tree, its trunk twisted and gnarled, its roots digging deep into the earth like claws. And there, at the base of the tree, was the drum. It was just as my grandmother had described, carved from dark wood, its surface etched with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The drum was old, impossibly old, yet its surface was smooth, as if it had been crafted just yesterday. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached it, my mind screaming at me to turn back, to run. But I was powerless to stop myself. I reached out a trembling hand, my fingers brushing the surface of the drum. The moment I touched it, the drumbeat stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, oppressive. I stood there, paralyzed with fear, my mind racing with thoughts of what I had done. And then, without warning, the ground beneath me began to shake. The drum had me in its grip. The roots of the tree twisted and writhed like snakes, tearing through the earth with a sickening crunch. The air grew thick with the scent of decay as the ground split open, revealing a dark, yawning chasm beneath the tree. From within the chasm came a sound, a low, guttural growl that sent waves of terror through my body. I tried to move, to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. I was rooted to the spot, my eyes locked on the chasm as something began to emerge from the darkness. It was a figure, tall and emaciated, its skin stretched tight over bones that jutted out at unnatural angles. Its eyes were hollow pits of darkness, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin.
It was Kamau, or what was left of him.
His voice was a raspy whisper, barely more than a breath of air, but it carried a weight of malice that chilled me to the core.
You have awakened me, he hissed, his voice echoing through the clearing. You have summoned me with the drum. I tried to speak, to apologize, to plead for my life, but no sound would come. Kamau began to move towards me, his bony fingers outstretched, and I could feel the coldness of death closing in around me. But then, just as Kamau was about to touch me, the drum began to beat again. This time, the sound was different, faster, more frantic, as if the drum itself was trying to warn me. Kamau recoiled, his twisted face contorting in anger as he looked back at the drum.
No, he screamed, his voice rising in a terrible, inhuman shriek. You cannot defy me.
The drumbeat grew louder, more powerful, drowning out Kamau's screams. The ground shook violently, and the chasm beneath the tree began to close. Kamau lashed out, his skeletal hands clawing at the earth, but it was too late. The drum's power was too great. With one final, ear-splitting roar, Kamau was pulled back into the chasm, the earth closing over him like a coffin. The drumbeat stopped, and the forest fell into an eerie silence once more. I collapsed to the ground, my body trembling with fear and exhaustion. I had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death, and I knew that I could never return to the village, never speak of what I had seen. The drum's power was too dangerous, too terrifying. As I lay there, staring up at the twisted branches of the ancient tree, I made a vow. I would leave this place, leave the village and the forest behind, and never return. I would warn others of the midnight drum, of the curse that had claimed so many lives.
And so, I left the village the next morning, never looking back. But even now, years later, I can still hear the faint echo of the drum in my dreams, a haunting reminder of the night I came face to face with the curse of the midnight drum.